My name's Thomas. I'm a construction worker out in the suburbs of Chicago, blue-collar born and bred. I've poured concrete in the rain, framed houses in below-zero wind chills, and once nearly lost a thumb to a circular saw because my idiot apprentice brought me the wrong piece of lumber. I've always believed in simple things, hard work, loyalty, and showing up when you say you will. For nearly 14 years, I thought my marriage was built on that same foundation. Jenna and I met the way a lot of folks around here meet, through friends, at a barbecue, beer in one hand, burger in the other. She laughed at one of my jokes that wasn't even that funny, and I was a goner. She had this quiet warmth, like she saw people for who they were underneath all the noise. We moved in together after a year, married after 2, and life just happened. Mortgage, 2 used cars, Christmas lights that always tangled, birthdays at her sister's place. Familiar things. Safe things. If you'd asked me back then, I would have said our relationship was solid. Not flashy. Not perfect. But solid. The kind that made you feel anchored. We had our routines. Jenna liked to cook dinner while I cleaned up afterward, and she'd hum along to whatever playlist she had going that night. I'd come home exhausted from a job site, and she'd greet me with that little side smile and a cold beer. We never talked much about needing excitement or change. I thought that was a good thing. I thought contentment meant success. Looking back now, I realize how dangerous comfort can be when you're not paying attention. It all changed on a gray morning in March. I was at O'Hare Airport waiting for a colleague flying in from Kansas City. The guy was flying in to consult on a joint project, and I'd offered to pick him up as a favor since he didn't know his way around the city. I got there early, as usual. Traffic was light for once, which almost never happens. Figured I'd grab a coffee and K*LL sometime near the waiting area. That's when I saw her. At first, I didn't even register it. You ever have that feeling where you see someone familiar in a place you absolutely don't expect them, and your brain takes a few seconds to process it? Like your mind says, that can't be right, before the rest catches up? That's what it was. There she was. Jenna. Walking through Terminal 2, suitcase in tow. But she wasn't alone. She was with a man I'd never seen before, tall, fit, well-dressed in that way that says expensive but pretending to be casual. He had a trimmed beard and aviators pushed up on his head. Jenna had her overnight bag slung across her shoulder, the same one she takes on our weekend getaways. I froze, standing halfway between the Starbucks line and a departures board. My first thought was, no, this doesn't make sense. She said she's flying out tomorrow. She told me clearly just the night before that she and her best friend Haley were catching a Thursday flight to Florida. Girls' trip, she called it. A little sun, a little wine, maybe a spa day. She'd even shown me their Airbnb listing. Said she was excited for a break from the winter blues. But there she was. A day early. And definitely not with Haley. I found myself ducking into a seat at a nearby cafe table, half hidden behind a support column. Not proud of it, but something in my gut told me to stay still and watch. They walked right past me, laughing. She was laughing. Jenna hadn't laughed like that in our kitchen in months. Her hand brushed against his arm like it belonged there. I noticed the little things first, her posture, her smile, the way she leaned in when he said something. None of it screamed friendship. Then it happened. He stopped walking for a moment, turned to her, and kissed her. Not a cheek kiss. Not a hug goodbye kind of kiss. No, this was slow. Familiar. An asterisk mate. Like he'd kissed her 100 times before. She didn't hesitate. Didn't pull away. She smiled after, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear like it was the most natural thing in the world. It felt like the air had been ked out of the terminal. I didn't even notice my coffee growing cold. I just sat there watching my wife walk hand in hand with another man toward the security checkpoint. I had no idea what to do, whether to confront her, to call out her name, to storm up and demand an explanation. But I couldn't move. I felt paralyzed, like the whole moment was happening in slow motion. They stood by the monitors, checked their flight info, same gate. Same flight to Miami. I saw the digital board. Flight 418 to MIA, boarding in 20 minutes. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation. Some fluke. Some misunderstanding. Maybe it was a work thing. Maybe she was helping someone else. But then I remembered what she'd said about the trip with Haley. That they were flying out tomorrow. That she was picking up wine for their beach night. That she might come back with a tan and the good kind of sunburn. So why was she at the airport with another man? Boarding a flight a day early. In a dress she only wore when she wanted to feel noticed? Why did she look happy? I sat there for almost half an hour after they disappeared past security. Just trying to breathe. Trying to think. My hands were shaking. I couldn't call her. I didn't even know what I'd say. "Hey, saw you at the airport cheating on me. How's that working out for you?" Eventually, my colleague landed and texted me that he was grabbing an Uber instead because I hadn't shown up. I told him I got stuck in traffic. Technically true, just the kind of traffic no GPS can warn you about. The whole drive home, my mind replayed it over and over. Jenna's laugh, that kiss, the way she held his hand like it was routine. And somewhere between I-90 and our front door, it hit me. I didn't really know who I was coming home to anymore. The house was too quiet when I got back. That eerie, unnatural kind of quiet where even the hum of the refrigerator sounds louder than it should. I dropped my keys on the counter and stood there for a moment, just listening. Like the walls might whisper an answer I couldn't find on my own. Jenna wasn't home, obviously. She was en route to Miami with a man whose name I didn't even know. But her absence felt different now. Not just like someone out of the house. Like someone gone from my life and I just hadn't realized it yet. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hands still trembling. I stared at the neatly folded comforter, the framed photo on her nightstand of us in Wisconsin Dells 3 years ago, arms around each other, both of us squinting into the sun, smiling like idiots. I remember that trip, how she insisted on trying the water slide even though she hated them, how we laughed until our stomachs hurt. That memory used to feel warm. Now it made my skin crawl. Couldn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat in the living room, in the dark, scrolling through the last few months of my own memory like a detective at a crime scene. Except the crime was my life, and the clues were scattered all around me. Things I'd seen but ignored. Things I didn't want to admit meant anything at the time. Started small. Jenna picked up running last October. She'd never been a fitness person, used to joke that her idea of cardio was reaching for the TV remote. But then one day, she bought new sneakers, some kind of high-tech watch to track her pace, and suddenly she was going out for runs 4 or 5 nights a week. First, I was proud of her. I even offered to go with her, but she brushed me off. Said she needed the time to herself to clear her head. I thought nothing of it. Then came the perfume. I remember the first time I noticed it. She walked past me in the hallway after one of her runs, and I caught this faint scent. Clean, woodsy masculine. It lingered in the air for just a second too long. New laundry detergent? I asked, half joking. She blinked, then laughed. Probably Haley's cologne. I gave her a hug earlier. I nodded, not thinking twice. But it happened again. And again. Little things started piling up, like bricks slowly forming a wall between us. She started working late more often. Said there were new projects, tighter deadlines. She became jumpy around her phone, always keeping it face down on the kitchen table. When I'd reach to hand it to her, she'd snatch it like I was trying to steal it. Her lock screen changed from a photo of us to some generic sunset. Her texts got shorter. The warmth in her voice faded, like she was always distracted or annoyed. And then the silence. We used to talk all the time. Not just the "how was your day" kind of stuff, but real conversations. Dumb inside jokes. Shared glances from across the couch that meant everything and nothing all at once. But somewhere along the way that disappeared. We became logistical roommates, sharing bills, chores, calendars, but not a life. I remember asking her about her weekend plans one Friday night a couple months back. She looked at me like I just asked her to solve a math equation. "I'm going to the gallery thing with Haley, remember?" she said, already slipping on her coat. "Oh, right, that was tonight," I asked, and she gave me that look. Eyebrows raised, lips pursed. The kind that says you're not paying attention. "I told you about it twice," she said, grabbing her purse. "Maybe you should listen." Then she was gone. That was how it started feeling. Like she was always gone. Even when she was home, her mind was somewhere else. She laughed at things on her phone I couldn't see. She hummed songs I'd never heard her play. She started using words she never used before. Phrases like intentional space and emotional bandwidth. I didn't recognize her anymore, but I kept telling myself I was imagining it. That work was stressful for her. That maybe we'd just hit a rut. Every couple does, right? I figured I'd plan something a weekend away maybe. Reconnect. I even started looking at cabins on Airbnb. I had no idea she was already planning weekend getaways with someone else. The worst part is that somewhere deep down, I think I knew. Not in the way that you know, but in the way your gut starts tying itself in knots without any proof. Like a storm building in the distance and you tell yourself the clouds aren't that dark. You lie to yourself so you don't have to face what happens when the rain finally comes. Now I couldn't stop seeing it. The signs were everywhere. Her sudden interest in skincare, her gym membership she never used, the way she'd flinch when I got too close. The quiet way she'd recoil from touch. The fact that she no longer said, "love you," unless I said it first, and even then it sounded mechanical, like an obligation. I remember one night, not long before the airport incident, I caught her staring out the window. She didn't even flinch when I walked into the room. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. She turned slowly, eyes unfocused. You looked a million miles away." "Oh," she said, blinking. "Just tired, I guess." She wasn't tired. She was somewhere else. With someone else. Now, sitting in that same room, the echoes of her absence felt like a living thing. A ghost in the hallway. Her coat still hung by the door. Her half-used bottle of shampoo sat in the shower as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I wanted to tell myself I needed proof. Concrete proof. But deep down, I already had what I needed. The truth was in every distant glance, every late night, every lie hidden in plain sight. All the pieces were there. I just hadn't wanted to put them together. Until I saw her at the airport boarding a flight with someone who wasn't me. That night, I opened her laptop. She wasn't dumb, she had deleted her browser history. But I still found traces. Confirmations for her airline ticket. Google searches for best romantic restaurants in Miami. A half-written email in drafts addressed to someone named Brian. It started with, "I can't wait to be in your arms again." I couldn't read the rest. I closed the laptop gently like I was afraid it might break from the weight of what it held. It was real. All of it. And suddenly everything I thought I knew about my wife, my marriage, my life, it all came crashing down. The thing about finding out your wife is cheating on you, it's not just the moment it happens that guts you. It's the days after. The hours. The endless seconds when you're stuck between the denial you want to cling to and the brutal truth slapping you in the face every time you breathe. I tried to hold on to doubt. I really did. Maybe the guy at the airport was just a friend. Maybe the kiss was some European goodbye thing, though I'd never seen Jenna so much as brush cheeks with a stranger before. Maybe the romantic email draft was old. Maybe the scent of cologne was her brushing up against someone in an elevator. Maybe she booked the flight for someone else. Maybe. But I couldn't live in maybe anymore. The next morning, after another sleepless night where I just stared at the ceiling fan like it might give me answers, I got my first real confirmation. I was mindlessly scrolling through social media when I saw it. One of Jenna's friends, someone I'd met a few times at barbecues and birthdays, posted a video from the beach. Nothing incriminating on its own. Just one of those slow panning clips with a caption like, "Spring break vibes with my girls, palm tree tropical drink." Except Jenna wasn't in the video. There were 4 women. None of them her. I watched the video again, then 3 more times in case I missed her somehow. Maybe she was off camera. Maybe she was the one filming. I clicked through to the next post, more drinks, more laughter, more tags. Still no Jenna. And then, like the universe was trying to make sure I really got the message, I checked her airline confirmation again. Something I hadn't noticed before. The email she left open had a PDF attached, the actual boarding pass. Her name was there. So was another. Brian Wells. Not Haley. Not a friend. A man. I searched the name, of course. First on Facebook. Then Instagram. Eventually LinkedIn. And there he was. Tall, same guy from the airport. Works in marketing. Based out of a firm in the city I'd never heard of. No mention of a girlfriend or wife. His profile pictures were all tasteful, sailing trips, charity events, a goddamn TEDx talk. The guy looked like a rom-com version of a corporate dreamboat. And there, on one of his tagged photos, was Jenna. Laughing at some rooftop party, a wine glass in hand, her head tilted toward him like he'd just whispered the funniest thing she'd ever heard. It was posted 3 weeks ago. I hadn't even known she'd been at a party. My chest tightened. My fingers went numb. I clicked through every post I could find, each one adding another crack to whatever was left of my understanding of our marriage. She wasn't just cheating. She was living a whole separate life. A secret version of herself I'd never been allowed to meet. But the moment that shattered everything, the moment I stopped hoping for any kind of redemption, came that afternoon. I got a text. No name. No number. Just a photo. It showed Jenna standing in the lobby of a beachside hotel, smiling, arms wrapped around Brian like she belonged there. They weren't even trying to hide. She was in sunglasses and a tank top, his arm resting on her hip like it was muscle memory. Below the image was a single sentence. Thought you should know. That's when the doubt officially died. No more second-guessing. No more justifying. No more benefit of the doubt. I sat there, staring at my phone, the picture burning into my retinas. And I felt hollow. Not angry. Not yet. That would come later. Just empty. This was it. The smoking G*N. The undeniable truth. Jenna was having an affair. And she wasn't being discreet either. She was out there, living it loud enough that strangers, or worse, friends, could see it. Enough that someone felt compelled to send me the evidence. Whether out of pity, guilt, or spite, I didn't know. But the intention didn't matter. The result did. I sat at the dining table for hours, not moving. Not eating. Barely blinking. Just trying to wrap my head around the fact that the woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, the woman I had dreamed of raising kids with, was doing all this behind my back. I remembered how she used to insist on full honesty, how she said she couldn't stand secrets. How she once cried when she thought I had lied about canceling dinner plans when I just forgot. She had P***nized vulnerability, made it a currency, and now here she was, bankrupt. I wanted to confront her. Call her. Text her. Scream. But I didn't. Because what was I supposed to say? Hey, I saw the photo of you wrapped around another man. Can you clarify the context? No. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't make me sound desperate. And I wasn't going to be that guy. Not for her. Instead, I printed out the boarding pass. The photo. The confirmation email. I lined them up on the kitchen counter like evidence in a trial. Laid out the facts for myself like some kind of ritual. I guess I needed to see it to look the betrayal in the face and know it wasn't just a bad dream. After all that, I opened our shared calendar. She had an event marked for the following Thursday. Client dinner. I stared at it for a long time, then laughed out loud. Client dinner, huh? Probably with Brian. Or someone else. I closed the laptop. I had all the proof I needed. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't a single slip. This was a pattern. A whole ecosystem of lies, built and nurtured carefully over time. She had become someone I didn't recognize. And now? I had a decision to make. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't even cry. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have made it feel more real. But by the time I stood up from that kitchen table and walked upstairs, something inside me had gone still. Numb. Like my emotions had packed up and left before I could. There was no grand confrontation. No screaming match. No soap opera moment where she walks through the door and I slammed down a folder full of evidence. Instead, I left a note. Simple. Plain. Written on a torn sheet from the legal pad she usually kept by the fridge for grocery lists. You don't have to pretend anymore. That's all I wrote. I packed a small duffel, just enough clothes for a few days, my laptop, passport, some cash, and the essentials. Left the rest. The house, the bills, the quiet tension in every corner, that was all hers now. I walked through each room once, slowly. Not to say goodbye exactly. More like trying to understand what I was walking away from. What I'd spent years building with someone who, apparently, had been dismantling it behind my back piece by piece. Her wedding dress was still boxed on the top shelf of the closet. I ran my hand over it just once, then shut the door. I didn't take my ring off right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something about it, about pulling it off at that moment, felt too final. Like I hadn't earned the right to make that decision yet. Not until she looked me in the eyes and told me the truth. So I left. I drove an hour north to Evanston where my buddy Cal had a spare room in his townhouse. We hadn't talked in a couple of months, but when I texted him, "Can I crash at your place for a few days?" "Don't ask," he replied in less than a minute. Front doors unlocked. Beers in the fridge. Sometimes you don't need more than that. I didn't tell Cal what was going on. Not the first night. We sat on his porch, drank 2 beers each, talked about football and old coworkers and whether or not the Bears would ever get their act together. He didn't ask why I showed up looking like I hadn't slept in 3 days. He didn't ask why my voice cracked when I said thanks before heading to bed. But the next day, Jenna did. I woke up to 12 missed calls. Then a text. Then another. Then a voice message. She was crying in it. Saying she was confused. Saying she came home to an empty house and my note and didn't understand what was happening. Didn't understand. That was rich? She tried calling again an hour later. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to hear whatever lies she'd rehearsed, whatever damage control spin she thought might still work. But then she sent a wall of text. Long. So long I had to scroll through it 3 times. She admitted it. Finally. She said his name, Brian, and admitted they'd been seeing each other. That it had started almost a year ago. That it wasn't planned, that she never meant for it to go that far. That she just needed someone to talk to and didn't know how to ask for help. Help? Like cheating was some kind of therapy. She said she didn't want to hurt me. That she had been unhappy. That our life had felt stuck and she didn't know how to say that out loud. So she'd started confiding in Brian. And then, somewhere along the way, it stopped being innocent. But here's the thing, what stuck with me the most wasn't the cheating itself. It was how casually she wrote it. As if she was confessing to eating the last piece of cake, not blowing up our marriage. She never once said, "I'm sorry." Not in the whole message. She blamed timing. Circumstance. Said she was confused. That it was never just about S*X, which somehow made it worse. She talked about feelings and connections and how she'd lost sight of the man I married. She never said she changed. Just me. Just us. Like we were some aging product that stopped working the way she liked, and rather than troubleshoot, she just tossed it out and upgraded. I read the message 3 times. I didn't respond. Instead, I went for a walk. It was cold out, but I didn't care. I walked through the streets of Cal's neighborhood, hands shoved deep into my coat pockets, watching my breath fog in front of me as I tried to process what my life had become. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the finality of it. The realization that the person I had loved, trusted with everything, was capable of that kind of duplicity. Of lying to my face. Of getting into bed with me after getting out of bed with someone else. That night, I took off my ring. Set it on the nightstand next to the bed in Cal's spare room. No big gesture. No dramatic throw across the room. Just a quiet, tired surrender. I don't know if I'll ever wear it again. Maybe someday I'll sell it. Or maybe I'll keep it in a drawer, a tiny reminder of who I used to be before everything cracked. The next day, Jenna sent another message. Shorter this time. Just said, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you." I didn't reply to that either. Because love doesn't look like secrets. It doesn't look like cold silences and a shared bed full of lies. It doesn't look like Miami with a stranger while I'm home folding your laundry and wondering why you've stopped smiling. She didn't stop loving me. She stopped seeing me. And maybe that's worse. I thought the worst was over. That was my mistake. I thought the affair was the end of the damage, that once Jenna admitted it, once I got that gut punch of a text, everything else would be a matter of cleanup. Painful, sure. But straightforward. Like tearing out drywall after a flood, you know it's going to S**ck, but at least you can see what needs fixing. Turns out I'd only seen the rot on the surface. It started with a hunch. Just a whisper in the back of my head. I was sitting at Cal's kitchen counter, staring into a bowl of cereal that had long since gone soggy when I decided to check my bank account. No real reason, just trying to feel like I still had some control over something in my life. Jenna and I had a few joint accounts and one we mostly used for savings. I hadn't touched it in weeks. Neither had she, or so I thought. When I logged in, I froze. There was a transfer, just over $17,000, marked as a payment to something called Valley Consulting LLC. The name meant nothing to me. It wasn't a company we'd ever worked with, and we hadn't hired anyone for anything big. The last time I'd touched that money was when we pulled a little for a vacation that never happened. I sat there for a minute, blinking at the screen, trying to come up with an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was fraud. Maybe it had nothing to do with Jenna. But deep down, I already knew. I started digging. The more I looked, the more my stomach turned. There were smaller payments too, $450 here, $800 there. Recurring charges for software I'd never heard of. One charge labeled Travel Expenses Consultant. All of them going back months. I opened our email account, one of the few things we still shared. I don't even know why she hadn't changed the password. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she thought I wouldn't look. But I did. Buried in the sent folder were emails addressed to various grant providers, business programs, and private funding networks. All sent from my name. My email. My credentials. They weren't just casual inquiries either. These were full proposals for a marketing startup called Branch and Bloom, listing me as the project manager, operations lead, and guarantor. She had forged documents, my digital signature, fake IDs, and even a scanned utility bill with my name and our address. Everywhere I looked, Jenna had turned me into the frontman for a business I didn't even know existed. The cherry on top? A scanned loan approval letter from a small local bank addressed to Thomas and Jenna Martin, confirming a credit line in my name, using my credit score, my ID, and apparently a phone number she routed through a second SIM card. She took out a loan under my name. And she used it to fund her secret business. The one I now realized she had started with Brian. That Miami trip? It wasn't just some affair getaway. It was also a client networking retreat as described in one of the pitch emails. She'd turned me into her safety net, her financial shield, her unknowing investor. I remember sitting back from the laptop, my mouth dry, heart racing. The betrayal from the affair had hurt. But this was something else. This was calculated. Cold. Businesslike. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd used me. Used my trust. My name. My stability. The life I built through years of work, every overtime shift, every busted knuckle, every dollar we saved for our future, twisted into some personal credit card for her new life. I didn't feel angry at first. I felt violated. Like I'd been robbed in my sleep and the thief was still sending me texts about how we grew apart. That night, I couldn't sit still. I paced Kel's living room for hours, going over everything in my head, the pieces falling into place like jagged glass. The late-night runs. The silence. The locked phone. The networking events. I used to think those were red flags pointing to an affair. But they were smoke covering a fire I hadn't even smelled yet. She was never just lying to me emotionally. She was lying legally. Financially. On paper, I was a partner in her new future. On paper, I was financing the life she wanted with someone else. And the worst part? She didn't even tell me. Not after she got caught. Not in her message. Not when she had the chance to come clean. She still thought I didn't know. Still thought she could get away with it. That maybe I'd just move on, forget the money, let her spin some new version of our story where we just grew apart. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I called my lawyer. Chris is a no-nonsense guy, gray hair, clear glasses, always looks like he just came from a mediation. I told him everything. Sent him the emails, the PDFs, the *TS. He didn't even blink. This is fraud, he said, flipping through the files on his screen. You could press charges. And you should. I didn't answer right away. Pressing charges against your wife, even an estranged one, feels like something other people do. People in tabloids. People with bitter divorces and restraining orders. But now I was that person. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Not out of spite. Not to punish her. But to protect myself. Because if I didn't act, I was on the hook. For the loan. For the taxes. For the mess she left in her wake.